Sweet. So Jason has left us with this lovely HTML page, which we're about to style. And it's got the mains page and the quotes page. Okay, cool. Let's jump into the code. Before we dive in, actually, I would love to show you guys the expected outcome, which I believe Jason has already shown you, that it's all laid out nicely in the center with the ability to toggle the theme, and same with the quotes page. Okay. Just a disclaimer, we're by no means designers, so please bear with us with the rudimentary design that we have. Our aim is to cover the fundamental development skills, and the font size, padding, and margin may not turn out exactly the same as what we have in the final template result, because I'm trying to code this as if this is a new project. So it stimulates the real life problem that I might face, and hope this will give you a better understanding on how to tackle different issues. Okay, let us actually jump into the code this time. So we have this main page here. How about we first dive in and sort out our Navbar, which we have here. So we can see it has a class attribute of Navbar. And let's jump into our styles.css, which we've already generated before. So this is a template with empty styles. Well, our final result wants it to be roughly, so everything's laid out on the same row, and the items are aligned. Oh, I spaced. There was a even space distribution between the title and the navigation links. So immediately I know that, oh, here's a slick trick, is that you don't actually have to code in the text editor. You can just open up your development console just by simply doing right click and inspect. Or if you're a power user, you can just do Ctrl-Shift-I. Okay, let's dive into our navbar. So with the minimal introduction to CSS that I did in the presentation slides before, we discussed that to control the layout of the items, we set the display to flex, and to control the position of the flex items within the container, as you can see, they are all aligned in the row instead. To control the position of the item, so we want to first center it, so we apply align item center to it. Right. So what it does is, because our flex direction is row, so by applying align items to it, we center the flex items on its crux axis. That means we are basically centering it vertically. So if we revert that style, and let's say we change our flex direction to column. So this is basically the same as before, that the items in the nav container are set out in a column direction, or the vertical direction. If we set out our align items to center, before we do that, let's talk about the expected result. So because our flex direction is column at this stage, that means our primary axis will be on the vertical direction. That means our crux axis will now be on the horizontal direction. So if we apply align items to center, we will expect all these elements to appear in the center of the page. I'll show you what I mean. See? Because align items adjust the flex items on the cross axis. Okay, so let's revert this. It's just so we don't have to worry about setting the flex direction because the default flex direction is row. So let's set it to center. And so in our desired result, we also want to give it some good space distribution between the flex items. So justify content does the job. And if you're not sure, because there are so many different values for justify content, you can just run through each of the options and see which one suits your needs. The ones that we will be using will be space around. The exact difference between space around, space between, and evenly will be nicely documented on the Flexbox in the Flexbox guide that I've referenced. And okay, so now we've got the basic layout. Then we want to set the border of the navigation bar. So border is actually a shorthand for border width. It's a 1 pixel. Border style, it's a solid, and border color. I can't exactly remember the color that I used. I think that's let's just make it gray for now. Okay, so this is what we have at the moment. But instead of writing all those width, style, and color, you can just use a single class attribute, which is style attribute, which is just called border, that summarizes all three things. So with this, we have a simple style for our navigation bar. Let's just copy and paste these styles into our text editor. Sweet. And let's refresh the page. And cool, it does exactly what I think it should. Okay, so now let's see what our expected result of the main page would be. Okay, so you can see that the text are centered and also the images are centered within the browser. So then let's jump into our code and see. Oh, we actually don't have to. We can just do it within the inspector here. Right. So we have a container with 2 images inside it. Okay. Now we have all these text. Okay. To style text, we simply just have to apply text align center to them. So that's fairly easy. Because so there's you might wonder why sometimes you want to center stuff with Flexbox, but other times you can just use text align. Well, because text align is you use that to style inline elements, or specifically for text specific elements like paragraph, header, and so on. And if you apply text align to a list item, for example, it doesn't work because it's not a text specific element. It's good to understand the semantics of these HTML tags as well, because it helps you to lay out the structure of your template or your web page really clearly. And okay, let's do out the second header, which is also test align, center, paragraph, let's center that as well. Test align, center. Okay, so all the tests are nicely centered. And let's look at the container that have the two images inside it. Right. So in the expected output, we can see that these two images are in two columns. Or you have the choice of actually you can either use Flexbox or grid here. It doesn't really matter too much. It shouldn't make a big difference. So I'll show you example of how I would do it using graph or using a grid first. So if I just set the display to grid and I want to split it into two columns. So I would have the grid template. Yeah, so it and just repeat to 1FR. So right, so we have split these two images into two columns. Now let's adjust the size of the images because clearly this image on the right exceeds the size of our the width of our very outer container as it's in its overflow state right now. Now let's jump into our images. Let's say so this is how width works. As you can see, section contains two elements called figure, and each figure also contains another image element. Therefore, if we want to control the size of the image, we can say, how about we make it fit 100% of its figure? So its width should be 100% of its parent, which is the figure. Let me show you what I mean. If I set the image width to 100%, and also for the other one, the one on the right, set it to 100%. So clearly this is a lot better because technically, if I splitted my columns into two, then the width of each column should be the same. Therefore, if I've set each of my image to fit the 100% of its figure or the parent element, then the two images will now have the same width. So that is promising, but we also now want to adjust the height because the height is automatically set to auto, which just means it scales accordingly with its intrinsic dimension. That means, as you can see, the actual dimension of this image is 1024 by 566, and the intrinsic dimension for the image on the left is 251 by 201. So that's very different. So that's why if these two images have the same width, it scales its height would be different because their actual dimension are different. Now we can control that by using we can give it an actual height. Let's just say I want the image to fill up 40% of the height of the viewport, which is the browser in this case. And let's do the same for the one on the left, sorry. 40% of the view height. Righto. So now each of them have exactly the same height and width. So that's cool. let's jump in and copy and paste our code into what's the class name. So the class name here is min. Let's find min on here. Okay, so let's do it. Let's paste it in here. And also we want to change the style of our containers, which is grid. Okay, so the class name is memes collection. Okay, which is right here. Let me paste that code into here. Sweet. Let's refresh the page and see if it does what we think it should. Nice. Okay. I promised you that I would do the same thing with Flex. Okay. So let me demonstrate it for you. Let me just take away all the initial styles that I have. So let's jump back into its container and give us a display of Flex. So everything that's on the same row. Now this is basically the same as setting the display to grid and then split it into two columns. And okay, let's adjust the size. Actually, since it's a flex item, you can use the flex grow, flex shrink, and flex bases attribute to control the size of the flex item. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's jump into figure. Let's use the flex attribute, which is the shorthand for flex grow, flex shrink, and flex bases. Let's just set it to 1. And let's do the same on the second one. Okay. So, alright. And we actually have to adjust the size of the image as well, I believe. Let's just use the attribute that we have before. So cool. So now it's the exact same thing as what we have before. Now, what will happen if we take away the flex attribute? Let's see. Now you can see the width is not the same anymore, these two images. That's because by default this image will be as large as it needs to be, and whatever the flex item at the end will stretch out to fill up the remaining space of the flex box. So let's just not use the shorthand. Let's use flex grow. I'm saying let's set it to 1. So that means I want this item to have the ability to grow. And let's say flex bases. So this controls the initial size of the flex item. And let's do the same thing here. I want this item to be able to grow and set its flex bases to auto as well. And let's give it the ability to shrink as well. Doesn't quite work as expected. Let me see why. Okay. Now this is why it's good to not have a script beforehand, because these are the things that we normally right, okay. These are the things that we wouldn't encounter if we had a script, right? Okay, so flex 1 is the magic attribute that we wanted. So now it has the ability to grow and shrink, which we want. We want our flex items to stretch across the flex box dynamically. So it's setting its flex basis to 0%. So that means we don't want to set a default initial size to our flex item. By setting it to flex basis to 0%, it basically means, so we have to first understand what flex grow means. If we jump back to our, sorry, I'll pull that out real quick, to our Flexbox cookbook, there is a section talking about flex grow, which is quite helpful for us to understand how to distribute the flex items inside the Flexbox proportionally. Right. Let me just wait for this thing to load for a bit. Okay, perfect. So, as you can see here, each of these elements have a flex grow of 1. That means in total, there will be 3 different pieces. And you can think of it as each item will occupy a third of the space within the flex box. Whereas on the other case, there are 3 items in the flex box also, but the first one has a flex grow of 1, the second one has 2, the third one is 1. That means in total there will be 4 different pieces, and the first one will occupy a fourth of the space. The second one is a half, so 2 over 4 is the same as a half, and the third element is a fourth. So jump back to our web page. It's basically the same thing here. So if we say the flex basis should be, oops, that's not the page we wanted. If our flex basis is 0%, which means we don't want the browser to decide what the initial size of the flex item should be. So it should completely be dependent on our flex grow factor. So in total, the flex grow factor is 2, and each of the item has a flex grow of 1, respectively. That means each image will now take up a half of the space. Therefore, they have the same. Each of the element have the same width. So that's cool. Let's refresh the page and see what we. So now all the styles that I used for Flexbox is gone. So it's using what I have in the code editor at the moment. But that's alright. Let's see what we have. So okay, so we also want to style our text. Styling text is really easy. I mean, just to position it, we just use this text align attribute, and let's call it center. So it just centers the text horizontally. And let's do the same thing on here. And the paragraph as well. Cool. Right, so this is basically the template that we want for the means page, as you can see here, except the text size is something that we still have to do, which we will soon. Okay, but first and foremost, let's copy and paste the styles into Visual Studio Code. So the paragraph has a class of center text. Okay, so each of these has the center text the class attribute. Let's just do text align center. Sweet, cool. So that's what we want. And let's jump back and look at it here. What is it doing? Okay, so I think it's got a different font for sure. The header are slightly bigger, and the paragraph is also a bit bigger. Okay, let's just adjust that. Let's see what we have. So let's do, yeah, let's set the font family to, okay, they don't give us any auto completion here. But I believe, so we want to, a good way to make every single text to inherit the same font is to set the font family to attribute. Oh, sorry, to set the font family on the body element. Oh, sorry. So this is something that I haven't explicitly stated, is that for things like the font size and the font family, if you've set of whatever you set it to the parent element, whatever font family or the size that you set on the parent element, all its children will inherit the same style. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's set our font family on our body to Arial, which is something that I like. Okay. So you can see that every single text inside our page has inherited the same font family. So that's good. That's a good place for us to start. And let's say what's the difference? All right. So you can see there's less margin between this and this header, and there is also what's some other differences. And okay, so all right. So there is the title. The title of the header is also bigger. Same with the navigation links, and we can see that it doesn't have the default styles that the A tag in HTML give us, which underlines the text and it gives it like a purple color. So we want to get rid of that. So we want to get rid of. Okay, so let's focus on the header first. So we said we want to get rid of the default style that the A HTML tag give us. And this is also something that I forgot to mention, which is if you don't write a dot before your class name, it's assuming that you are trying to override some default style a HTML tag has. Okay, so as you can see, if I write a dot, if I give a dot before the body element, before this body class, actually it wouldn't set the font family across the whole page anymore, because it's assuming that because I have a dot in front of my text, it's just saying, okay, this thing is another class name. But if I take away that dot, it's saying, okay, you are trying to override the style that this element tag has, right? So now everything has the font, the Arial font. Now let's go back to our navigation link. So we want to override that. We want to say, let's make the color the same as for the other text, which is black, and take away its underline thing. Let's see. Okay, cool. So this is what we wanted, and let's adjust the margin between these things. I'll say, let's see what's the margin that we would like. So anything that you want to like test out, the inspector tool is the best place to do it. So let's see. I'm not sure. Let's just trial and error. Do I want Okay. Margin of 0, margin bottom of 0, okay. And margin, maybe say, let's test out what will happen if margin, yeah. This is quite good. Memes, what does it mean? Nice. Okay, so I think that will do it. So our memes title have a is inside a h1 tag. So let's override that default style. Let's just set it to margin bottom of 0. And our what is the main text is inside a h2 tag. Let's override that and say top 0 as well. And actually, by the way, you don't actually need to use a h1 or h2 tag, but just give it a better semantic, like what we said before. It gives your web page a better layout, a better structure. You can actually do this with a paragraph tag, which is just a p tag. But h1 just if we use h1 immediately, you know it must be the main header. When we use h2, it's a subheader. So there is that intrinsic meaning that this HTML tag carries. And also we want to adjust the font size of this description text. Let's do some trial and error. So we've established before that when we want to adjust the font size, it's best to do it with REM or EM. So just to recap, EM is dependent on the width of its parent. So if your parent has a width of 100, then setting the children element to 1 EM will make your children to have a width of 100 pixels. By setting it to 0.5, will make it have 50 pixels. So, and let's see, 125.em. I think that gives us, yeah, that looks alright. 125em looks good. So to clearly calculate how many pixels that is, I will say my parent element is the body. Okay, so my body has a default font size of 16 pixels, I believe. So by setting it to 1.5 em, we will try to, let's see, 16 times 1.25, that's 20 pixels. Let's see if 20 pixels actually give us the same result. Yeah, it does. Looks exactly the same. But yeah, the advantage of using EM is just that it scales proportionally to its parent. So it gives us a upper hand advantage when we want to make a responsive design. Righto, let's try to apply these styles back into our code. This tag has a class name of main description, which is here. Let's give it a font size of 1.25 em. Okay, let's make our navigation link a bit bigger too. What does it have? I'm not sure, maybe font size of 1.25 en. That looks about right. And now H1. Want to make that a bit bigger. So let's set the font size to, I don't know, 2 em. How's that look? It actually looks fine. I don't mind our main header memes to have the same font size, which was 2 em, I think. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, let's apply our style back into here. So we say we want our main header H1 to have a font size of 2EM and our navigation link, which has the style of navlink. Alright, in that case, instead of hard coding our navigation link to have a color of black and this text declaration of none, we can actually just set that to our navlink. Okay, so we say we want our font size to be 1.25 EM. Let's refresh the page and see what we have. Oh, this is not what I expected. Right. So you can see this, the H1 tag also has a margin top of 15 pixels. So let's just set that to 0 as well. Right. And we want to apply some padding because we want some breathing space between the border and the text inside it. So before we do that, we set to take away the margin of the main header, which is like you can just use a shorthand margin to 0. So that sets all 4 sides of your margin to 0. And we say we want this is now very close to our header, but I think that's alright because we later on want to insert a toggle button in here, which separates out, and we can have some margin between the header, the nav bar, the button, and the text here. So we'll worry about the margin later. Here we'll just try to apply the padding in our nav bar. Let's have a look. I believe let's just do some trial and error. 4 pixel, 5, 6. Let's do. I think 12 pixels works fine. I think. So let's give our navbar a padding of 12 pixels. Okay, so this marks the end of the styling for our index.html page, and which later on we will need to add a toggle button inside here. So let's try to style our quotes page. Here we have our quotes page. So let's have a look at our expected result. So again, we want to center all the text and this little box container inside the whole page. Okay, and so if you want to center something both horizontally and vertically, a Flexbox will be a very good thing to use. And also because this is one-dimensional, this is everything is laid out nicely along one column. But also, it's the most intuitive way to lay out such structure would be to use a Flexbox. Let's examine what we have. We have the header, okay, and a whole section. Oh, that's good. A whole section. So this section contains the header and all these quotes inside it. So what we can do is that let's say set the display to flex. Now because the default flex direction is row, that's why you see everything is now inside one row. Right. And we will say let's override the default style. Let's say we want everything to be column, and we want to center all the content inside it horizontally. And since our flex direction is column, that means our primary axis is on the vertical direction. So to adjust the position of the items horizontally, we just use the align items attribute and we apply center to it. So it looks about right at the moment. Okay. Let's just apply these. Let's just copy and paste these attributes inside our code. So I believe it's for quotes container. Sweet. Okay, let's refresh the page to update our style. And now we want to make the little card looking things, which we want to center the quote inside it, and the person is to the end of our Flexbox. And then we apply some border to it. Right. Let's see exactly how that can be done. Let's just take a look at one card, for example. Let's take a look at this card. Okay, so if I was going to do this, so this thing is already centered, and we just want to move this thing to the end of this box to help you visualize the box a bit better. Let's say make it, let's just add some border around it. Set the border width to 1 pixel, make it solid, and make it gray or dark gray or whatever the color. I'm not sure. Let's just use dark gray. Right. What we want is we want to set this thing to the end of our card. Well, you may think, wouldn't text align work? That would be a good guess, but let's see what it gives us. If I was going to set text align to right, actually it works pretty well. It works pretty good. So, oh yeah, because the paragraph fills up 100%, because it's a block element, so it actually fills up 100% of the width of its parent. So if we set text align to right, then it places the current text on the right hand side of the current block element. As you can see in the browser, the parts that's highlighted in orange, that's our margin. The parts that's highlighted in blue, that's our content. So right now, the text inside it, we say we want to align it to the right. Now that's exactly what it does. It aligns the text on the right hand side of the current p tag element. But we want to add some padding to it. Let's just say padding right. Let's give it a try. 1 pixel, 2. I think, yeah, 12 pixel in this case works fine too. So yeah, it looks about the same with the expected outcome that we want as well. So let's just apply this style to, let's copy and paste that into our code. So this bit has a class name of person name. Let's find that here. Oh, by the way, this is a really good little trick. So if you want to search something inside your text editor, it's the same thing as you would do on a browser. You just do Control F, and then you just type in whatever you want. If I want to search for my containers, so this is my quotes container here. So it's a really good way to help you navigate inside Visual Studio Code. And okay, so we've applied styles on our person name, and let's apply styles to our the card as well, which is just a border. And let's see what it gives us. Okay, so as you can see, we want our card to have the same width. That means we will want to apply some hard-coded width into it. So let's just make a width of 400 pixels. Okay, so now I think 450 looks a bit better. Okay, 450 is fine. And you can see all of them are stacked right on top of each other. So if you want to add space between the border and the space surrounding it, that's when you want to use margin. So let's just set the, oops, let me reapply that. And let's just say the margin to, let's start with 4 pixel. I think 8 pixel works fine. Yeah. So now this container now has a width of 400 pixel, a margin of 8 pixel. So margin top, right, bottom, and left all has a margin of 8 pixel, and there's a border applied to it. So that's looking like the what we want in our expected outcome. So let's apply that. And also I think there is something to be done here, is that we don't want the margin to be this much between the description and the subheader. So I think that's what the expected outcome should be. Yeah. So you don't want that much of a margin. Let's just adjust that. Let's say margin bottom to be 1 pixel. 0 pixel, in fact. Okay, 0 looks fine. Let's just give it, okay, it's got a class name of quote description. I don't think that's the best naming, but we'll go with that for now. I think a better naming would be quote subheader or something. That's okay. Don't make this mistake, guys.